crackling of a slowly burning fire. It's time to tell the story of one of history's most magnificent heroes. I invite you to embark on a journey into the depths of forgotten times, woven with legends. This journey will allow you to discover the tale of a leader, a warrior, and a wise man, Alfred the Great. Imagine once upon a time in these lands, in the misty valleys of England, you are witnessing the birth of a figure who would shape the fate of a continent. Alfred wasn't just a prince, he was also a brave warrior and a wise king who left an indelible mark on history. The great events he lived through, the tales of heroism, and the strategies that altered the course of history during his short life earned him a legendary title. Let's step into Alfred the Great's world, through the eyes of an ancient sage gathered around a fire. In the darkest days of the kingdom, Alfred emerged like a star shining in the shadow of wars. I will share every detail of his life with you. Alfred's life isn't just the story of a kingdom, it's the story of a rebirth of an era. King Alfred became a beacon of hope in lands shaken by barbarian invasions, uniting his people and laying the foundations of a great civilization. Every moment, every decision, and every battle were the building blocks of Alfred's legend. In this historical journey, I'll tell you how Alfred became a leader at a young age, how he became a beacon of hope in dark times, and how his war strategies changed the fate of a nation. Now, get ready to listen to this tale on the windy lands of ancient England, a story that stretches from the depths of the past to our present. As we witness the life of this legendary king by the warm light of the fire, we'll explore every aspect of the great leader who changed the course of history. Amid the shadows of the past, in the legendary lands of ancient England, a great story was taking root in the villages of a small kingdom. This story marks the first steps of Alfred the Great's life journey, a path leading to legendary status even from his infancy. As we gather around the fire, we'll explore the early life of Alfred, the man who would change the course of England's history, starting with the family he was born into and how his youth was shaped. It was the year 849, in the dark and misty days of England, on a star-filled night in the heart of the kingdom of Wessex. That night, a child destined to leave an indelible mark on history was born. Alfred, the youngest son of King Ethelwulf and Queen Osber, opened his eyes to the world. From the moment he was born, it was clear that he would have a profound impact on the future and fate of the land that bore his name. King Ethelwulf was a strong leader, meticulously fulfilling his duty to protect the kingdom of Wessex. His leadership skills and military strategies not only safeguarded the borders of Wessex, but also ensured the safety of his people. Queen Osber, both a queen and a mother, played a crucial role in Alfred's life. Her wisdom and support greatly influenced Alfred's character. Her royal duties and maternal responsibilities inspired young Alfred, laying the foundation for his future as a strong leader. Alfred's family was dedicated to raising him as a warrior leader. Despite being the youngest among his siblings, Alfred's deep bond with them and the moments they shared together would later become the cornerstones of his great achievements. His siblings were both his rivals and his supporters. Among them, King Ethelred was particularly important, serving as both a mentor and a key figure in strategic battles. The education and experiences Alfred gained in his youth helped him develop leadership skills and equipped him with the courage and strategic thinking necessary for the battlefield. Alfred's early years as the son of a king were filled not just with luxury and privilege, but with responsibility as well. His education from a young age prepared him not just as a prince, but as a future great king. The warrior culture of England at the time played a significant role in shaping Alfred's character. Growing up in the shadow of wars, Alfred took his first steps toward becoming both a warrior and a wise leader. Alfred's youth, while blessed with the privileges of royal life, was also marked by challenges. His education was given great importance, and he began to learn about historical events, military strategies, and governance skills. This early education shaped him not just as a leader but also as a knowledgeable king. The experiences of his childhood laid the groundwork for his future successes and efforts to save his kingdom. In short, Alfred the Great's youth and family were critical in shaping his place in history and his legendary status. The importance that King Ethelwulf and Queen Osburh placed on his education and development laid the foundation for Alfred's future success. As you sit by the fire, think about this pivotal moment in history in Alfred's childhood years. This great story, which began in infancy, signaled the birth of a leader who would change the course of history. Once upon a time, in the misty valleys and dense forests of England, a young prince embarked on an educational journey that would shape his destiny. Alfred the Great's childhood was marked not just by his status as the son of a king, but by a rigorous education that molded him into a wise and strategic leader. Now let's explore how Alfred's early education, the knowledge he gained, and the formation of his character set the stage for his legendary future. In the year 855, young Alfred was being carefully educated as a prince. In the heart of Wessex, there was a comprehensive educational program that centered around history and military strategy. King Ethelwulf and Queen Osburh were determined to raise their children not only as princes but as exceptional leaders. Alfred was not just a student during this time, he was being groomed as a future great leader. Alfred's educational journey began with lessons in his early years. These lessons extended far beyond language and literature. Young Alfred started learning about England's history, military strategies, and governance skills. This education was not limited to bookish knowledge, it also taught him how to respond to the challenges of his time. The education Alfred received ensured that he would grow into a well-rounded leader. He was immersed in history, gaining deep insights into the successes and failures of past kings. This knowledge became the foundation for Alfred's future strategic decisions. In addition, his training in military strategies honed his battlefield skills, giving him a significant advantage as a courageous warrior. Alfred's education also allowed him to develop his individual talents. He engaged in various sports and mental activities that strengthened him both physically and mentally. These activities increased Alfred's physical endurance and enhanced his ability to think strategically. For example, his training in horseback combat techniques and sword fighting improved his battlefield abilities and helped him become a more effective leader in defending his kingdom. The knowledge Alfred gained at a young age reinforced his wisdom and strategic thinking abilities. Particularly, his education in warfare and military strategies cultivated him not only as a warrior but also as a strategist. Alfred would later use this knowledge to play a crucial role in defending Wessex and protecting his kingdom against the Vikings. Another vital aspect of Alfred's education was his religious instruction. The royal family ensured that Alfred was taught not only military and administrative knowledge, but also religious values. This education shaped his moral and ethical principles and laid the foundation for his leadership skills. Religious teachings helped Alfred develop a deep moral understanding, which influenced his decisions and governance of the kingdom. In conclusion, Alfred the Great's early education laid the foundation for his legacy as a leader throughout history. The rigorous education he received from a young age provided him with significant advantages both personally and in ruling his kingdom. The meticulous educational strategies of King Ethelwulf and Queen Osburh ensured that Alfred grew up not just as a king, but as a wise and capable leader. This educational journey laid the groundwork for his future successes and his efforts to protect his kingdom. As we continue on this long journey, consider young Alfred's educational life. How did this process, which began in infancy, cultivate his wisdom and leadership abilities? This deep education will help you understand how Alfred became a figure both as a warrior and a sage. Let's continue to explore this historical journey together as we sit by the fire. Ah, young Alfred, the compassionate Prince of Wessex, shaped not only by royal education but also forged in the fires of battle, emerged as a leader. I am here to recount the early military encounters that illuminated his path and demonstrate how a warrior is cultivated to protect his kingdom. Let us revisit the moments when this young prince first faced the harsh winds of fate. As Alfred embarked on his military career at a young age, his influence on the kingdom was immense. In the 870s, the threat of Danish Vikings loomed large over the heart of Wessex. During this period, Alfred's journey as a young but brave warrior began. Alongside King Athelwulf and his brothers, Alfred first confronted the brutal realities of war. One of Alfred's first significant military assignments occurred in 871. Wessex was under severe pressure from Viking assaults. Despite his youth, Alfred stood firm in the defense of his kingdom. His first battle, though brief, was an invaluable learning experience. In that chaotic environment, Alfred's courage and leadership skills shone through. However, this initial battle demonstrated not only Alfred's prowess as a soldier but also his emerging role as a strategist. Alfred fought not just with his sword but also with his mind. Amid the chaos of war, he keenly observed the enemy's movements and made strategic decisions that played a crucial role in defending Wessex. This battle was a pivotal moment in honing Alfred's military skills and preparing him for future victories. Another crucial moment came in 878. During this time, Alfred rose to prominence in Wessex's intense struggle against the Vikings. Forces led by the Viking leader Guthrum had advanced deep into the heart of Wessex. In this critical period, Alfred's military skills, leadership, and bravery were tested in ways that would determine the war's outcome. In the face of the Vikings' advanced strategies and superior numbers, Alfred crafted a bold resistance. He carefully analyzed the enemy's strength and movements. By maintaining the morale of his soldiers and developing a series of strategic responses, Alfred fortified Wessex's defense. This period not only solidified Alfred's battlefield abilities, but also strengthened his leadership and strategic thinking. Alfred's military experiences were not confined to the battlefield. He also honed his ability to manage the hardships brought by war and his military leadership skills. He participated in campaigns within and around Wessex, learning various military tactics and gaining experience. These experiences provided Alfred with a significant advantage in his later efforts to defend and expand his kingdom. Following these initial military assignments and battle experiences, Alfred the Great had seen the true face of war, honing his courage and strategic capabilities. In the chaos of battle, this young leader proved himself not only as a warrior but also as a strategist. His role in defending Wessex laid the foundation for his future successes and the protection of his kingdom. Now, as you sit by the fire, reflect on the beginnings of young Alfred's military career. How did these first battles and military assignments influence his future journey as a leader and victor? Alfred's early experiences will help you understand how he grew not just as a warrior but as a wise leader. Let us approach these tales of battle from the dusty pages of history with curiosity and admiration. All right, let's dive into the dark and thrilling days of history when the Vikings launched their wild attacks on England and Wessex's brave responses. In an era dominated by swords, shields, war cries, and the fury of the seas, I'm going to tell you about Wessex's struggle to defend itself. Let's explore this time when dark Norse legends came alive, tough battles were fought, and strategic smarts shone through. The Vikings set out from the cold, gloomy lands of the north and spread fear across England's peaceful shores. These nomadic sea warriors brought a threat that would dramatically change England's history. The Viking raids of this period marked the beginning of not just a physical, but also a psychological war. terrifying warriors hit the shores with massive ships and altered familiar landscapes. The first major Viking raids began in the 8th century. In 793, their ruthless attack on Lindisfarne Abbey introduced England to these fearsome and savage warriors. This abbey was considered sacred by the gods, and the Vikings targeting it showed that the conflict was about more than just war, it was also about religion and culture. The destruction of Lindisfarne revealed that the Vikings' goals were not just material but spiritual as well. This attack was only the beginning. The Vikings had their sights set on other parts of England too. During this dangerous time, Wessex stood as a beacon of hope. King Ethelwulf and his successors fought to protect their kingdom from the Viking threat. However, the Viking raids repeatedly put Wessex in a tough spot, especially in the 870s. As the Vikings grew stronger and raided Wessex lands, the region's resilience was put to the test. In 871, the Vikings targeted Winchester, the capital of Wessex, deeply shaking the kingdom. Alfred the Great's military skills and strategic intelligence shone through during this challenging period. As one of King Ethelwulf's sons, Alfred played a key role in defending Wessex. But young Alfred's military duties weren't just about fighting, they were also crucial for boosting morale and solidarity among the people. The Viking threat challenged not only Wessex's military strength but also its social structure. The major Viking attack of 878 was a turning point for Wessex. At this time, the Vikings advanced into the heart of Wessex, putting Alfred and his kingdom in a difficult position. But this didn't mean Alfred was going to give up. Alfred's intelligence and strategic skills emerged in a way that changed the course of the war. In his fight against the Vikings, Alfred didn't just rely on military might. He also developed comprehensive strategies to understand the nature of the conflict and anticipate the enemy's movements. During this period, Alfred's guerrilla warfare tactics turned the challenges of a nomadic lifestyle into an advantage. By hiding in forests and swamps, he launched surprise attacks against the Vikings and boosted his resistance. This strategy helped Wessex maintain its resilience against the enemy and altered the course of the war. Under Alfred's leadership, Wessex managed to withstand the Viking threats. Alfred was not just a soldier but also a strategist and a source of morale for his people. His struggle against the Vikings earned him a place not just as a king but also as a folk hero. Wessex's resistance during this time is tied to Alfred's determination to protect and strengthen his kingdom, as well as his battlefield successes. The story of Viking attacks and Wessex's defense is one of the most exciting and instructive periods in our history. Alfred the Great's leadership, courage, and strategic intelligence played a crucial role in overcoming the challenges of this era. As you sit by the fire, reflecting on the details of this grand struggle, it offers a deep understanding of Alfred's strategies in war and defense, immersing you in the rich tapestry of this historical narrative. Dear listeners, now let's step into one of the most fascinating and epic stories of our history, Alfred the Great's rise to the throne of Wessex. This process involved not only the ascension of a king but also the internal struggles, court intrigues, and the birth of a courageous leader that determined the fate of a kingdom. Let's dive deep into this historical tale and explore Alfred's challenging journey to kingship. It all began as Alfred's father, King Ethelwulf, neared the end of his reign. Ethelwulf had long defended Wessex from Viking attacks and was known as a powerful ruler. But time had run its course for Ethelwulf, and the future of the kingdom fell on his son's shoulders. After Ethelwulf's death, his eldest son Ethelbald ascended to the throne as the new king of Wessex. However, Ethelbald's reign was brief and troubled. Shortly after, a struggle for the throne erupted among his brothers. Alfred's path to the throne was filled with both internal and external challenges. Following Ethelbald's death, Alfred's elder brother Ethelred took over the throne. During this period, Alfred emerged as a significant military and political figure. However, the kingdom's stability was threatened by the Vikings, and internal conflicts were weakening Wessex's power. Alfred's struggle for the throne was part of the broader internal dynamics and complexities of war. The internal conflicts within Wessex increased the challenges Alfred faced in strengthening his claim to the throne. These internal struggles reflected both the kingdom's and Alfred's personal battles. After his brother Ethelred's death, Alfred had to use not only his military skills but also his political and strategic intelligence during his transition to the throne. The struggle for the throne tested Alfred's leadership qualities and solidified his influence over the kingdom. After his brother's death, Alfred's impact on the kingdom became immediately apparent. Internal conflicts required Alfred to succeed not only on the battlefield but also in the management of the kingdom. The political infighting within Wessex compelled Alfred to take strategic steps to secure his reign. Alfred's path to kingship marked not only a change in the monarchy, but also a period that shaped the future of the kingdom. The internal struggles and court intrigues tested Alfred's character and leadership. This challenging period marked a time when Alfred had to use both his military and political acumen to keep Wessex strong and united. The difficulties and struggles Alfred faced on his way to the throne ensured that he was remembered not only as a king but also as a master strategist and protector of his people. During this time, Alfred's leadership played a crucial role in Wessex's defense and rebuilding efforts. The transition to the throne was a symbol of Alfred's battle against both internal and external threats. This epic tale helps us understand Alfred's struggles and the internal dynamics of Wessex. Alfred the Great's challenging period of ascending to the throne is one of the important turning points in our history. As you sit by the fire, reflecting on the details of Alfred's struggle for the throne and the significance of his transition, it takes us one step deeper into the captivating world of history. Now let's dive deeply into this fascinating period of history and take a close look at Alfred the Great's military reforms and defense strategies. This story isn't just about a king's military brilliance, but also about the defensive measures that determined the fate of a nation. We'll explore step by step how Alfred protected Wessex from Viking attacks, showcasing his strategic genius and military vision. Imagine centuries ago, one of England's small kingdoms, Wessex, was struggling to defend itself against the brutal Viking raids. The Vikings would invade from the sea, targeting kingdoms and devastating towns and villages. It was at this point that Alfred the Great's military reforms and defense strategies became key elements that would change Wessex's fate. Alfred's military reforms led to profound changes not just on the battlefield, but in Wessex's overall defense capacity. Firstly, Alfred reorganized the military organization and command structures. He established local militias, consisting of villagers capable of providing soldiers from every corner of the kingdom. This system enhanced the defense capacity of all villages and towns in Wessex and ensured that the people played an active role during wartime. Alfred didn't just revamp his troops, he also restructured the defense infrastructure. Fortifications were at the heart of these reforms. He ordered the construction of various castles at strategic points to strengthen Wessex's defense line. These castles served as shields against Viking land attacks. They were not just military bases but also key points in the defense network. Alfred designed these castles to be robust structures supported and manned by local inhabitants. Castles functioned both as defensive fortresses and as settlements. Alfred's vision for castle building greatly increased Wessex's military strength. These castles played a crucial role in protecting the local population from Viking attacks. They were not only storage sites for military personnel but also for supplies and food, making Wessex resilient against long-term sieges. Alfred's strategic setup was a significant success in hindering Viking advances and protecting Wessex's borders. Among Alfred's defense strategies, naval defense also played a crucial role. Given the frequent Viking sea raids, Alfred developed new strategies to enhance naval defenses. He established better maritime surveillance and early warning systems to protect the kingdom's coastal areas. This improved naval defense created a barrier that made it harder for Vikings to land, thus boosting the effectiveness of Alfred's defense strategies. Alfred's military reforms and defense strategies were aimed not only at defense but also at ensuring Wessex's overall security. His success during this period is a testament to his military leadership and strategic intelligence. The reforms he implemented to protect Wessex from Viking attacks and enhance the kingdom's defense capacity marked a significant turning point in history. Alfred's military strategies and defensive measures demonstrated how forward-thinking he was as a leader and his commitment to ensuring the safety of his people. From the details of fortifications to the overall defense infrastructure, Alfred's vision and strategic intelligence greatly enhanced Wessex's defense capability. As you sit by the fire, reflecting on the historical significance of Alfred's military reforms and defense strategies, you can better appreciate how under his leadership, Wessex established a strong defensive line against the Vikings and achieved a major success in protecting his kingdom. Now, dear listeners, as we sit around the fire, we'll shine a light on another significant turning point in our history. This time we're exploring Alfred the Great's legal and administrative vision, not just his military genius. Alfred's approach to governance didn't just transform the military defense of his kingdom, but also fundamentally restructured its legal system. Ready to dive into the depths of time? Let's explore Alfred's legal and administrative reforms in detail. Alfred the Great's reign is remembered not only for its warfare and defense, but also for its contributions to law and justice. During this period, the legal reforms Alfred implemented were crucial changes that shaped not only Wessex but the future of all of England. As a king, Alfred was determined to ensure not just victory in battle but also societal order. He made extensive reforms to the legal system, laying a solid foundation for justice. Firstly, one of the cornerstones of Alfred's legal reforms was ensuring that justice was applied equally to everyone. Alfred compiled and organized the old Anglo-Saxon laws, making justice clearer and more applicable. This collection of laws, known as Alfred's Laws, was designed to address various social and economic issues in the kingdom. These laws detailed crimes and penalties, while reshaping society's understanding of justice. Alfred's legal reforms emphasized that justice was not just about punishment but also about prevention. Therefore, preventive measures and social regulations were included in the laws. For instance, penalties for crimes like theft and robbery aimed to enhance community safety and prevent recidivism. Additionally, various social services and public projects were initiated to maintain social order. Alfred considered public welfare as a crucial aspect of administering justice. Another important aspect of Alfred's legal vision was his administrative reforms. The king aimed to enhance the effectiveness of the central government by regulating local governance and court operations. Changes were made to ensure that local administrations operated more systematically and fairly. New rules were established for local judges and officials to ensure that courts functioned more regularly and transparently. These reforms enabled more effective justice at the local level. Alfred's legal reforms were not limited to revising existing laws. They also included restructuring the kingdom's social and economic framework. Alfred introduced various laws and regulations to regulate economic activities and improve societal welfare. For example, the regulation of trade and craft activities provided a stronger economic foundation for the people. King Alfred's legal and administrative reforms reveal that he was not just a warrior but also a visionary leader. These reforms strengthened not only the military but also the social and economic structure of his kingdom. Alfred's laws and administrative changes ensured Wessex's long-term success and laid the foundations of England's legal system. The impact of Alfred's legal and administrative reforms highlights how forward-thinking his approach to governance was, and how determined he was to ensure justice. These reforms have earned him recognition not only as a warrior but also as a seeker of justice. That's why Alfred's legal and administrative reforms are a crucial turning point in the history of not just Wessex but all of England. Now, as we sit by the fire, we can better appreciate how Alfred's sense of justice and administrative vision played a significant role in the development of his kingdom. Dear listeners, as we sit around the warm glow of the fire, we're about to dive into one of the most exciting chapters in history, Alfred the Great's epic struggle against the Vikings, with a particular focus on the Battle of Eddington. Alfred's life is a remarkable story not only of intellect and strategy but also of courage and determination. In this segment, we'll thoroughly explore Alfred's fierce battles with the Vikings, the treaties signed, and especially how the Battle of Eddington became a turning point. Alfred the Great's kingdom was shaken by the Viking invasions of England. These fierce seafarers, driven by their ambition to conquer lands, came like dark clouds from the north. Wessex had become the primary target of these Viking raids. Yet, Alfred stood out not just as a king but as a master strategist against these threats. First, let's look at the Viking invasions of England. By the late 9th century, Danish Vikings had achieved significant successes in their raids on England. During this time, the Vikings had gained considerable territory, especially in eastern England, and had threatened many kingdoms. Wessex, under Alfred's rule, was at the heart of these attacks. Alfred's struggle with the Vikings wasn't just military but also diplomatic. Alongside the battles, treaties were made. These agreements aimed to fulfill the strategic objectives of both Alfred and the Vikings. However, these treaties often proved short-lived, and the conflicts inevitably resumed. Now let's focus on one of Alfred's most important battles, the Battle of Eddington. This battle, which took place in 878 near the village of Eddington, modern-day Eddington, is historically significant. It represents the pinnacle of Alfred's struggle against the Vikings and showcases his determination and military genius. Before the Battle of Eddington, Viking attacks on Wessex had put Alfred in a difficult position. The royal army was struggling to overcome the Vikings, and Alfred needed to develop an urgent strategy to turn the situation around. Analyzing the Vikings' weaknesses, Alfred devised an effective defense and counterattack plan. During the crucial moments of the battle, Alfred's military strategy and leadership shone through. He employed innovative tactics to repel the Viking assaults and led the Wessex army with bravery. This battle was not only a military victory, but also a symbol of Alfred's leadership skills and resilience. The victory at Eddington marked a turning point in the conflict with the Vikings. This victory paved the way for peace negotiations with the Vikings. After the Battle of Eddington, Alfred and the Vikings reached an agreement. This treaty limited Viking control over England and helped preserve Wessex's territorial integrity. The agreement highlighted Alfred's diplomatic success as well as his military prowess. The conflicts with the Vikings, particularly the Battle of Eddington, secured Alfred a significant place in history. These battles tested not only his military skills but also his diplomatic abilities, leaving a profound impact on the future of his kingdom. Alfred the Great's conflicts with the Vikings reflect his resilience, strategic intelligence, and leadership skills. The Battle of Eddington represents the zenith of this struggle and is a defining moment for Alfred's kingdom. As we sit by the fire, reflecting on Alfred's courage and determination in these battles, we gain a deeper understanding of his role as a leader and strategist. Now, illuminated by these epic struggles, we can turn our focus to Alfred's other significant achievements and legacy. Dear listeners, we're now taking another step into the dusty pages of history. delving into Alfred the Great's peace treaties with the Vikings, his relations with Danelaw, and his diplomatic efforts. By the warm light of the fire, we'll uncover how Alfred was a genius not only on the battlefield but also in the realm of diplomacy. Following the Battle of Eddington, Alfred the Great reached a significant turning point both militarily and diplomatically. This battle was not only a military victory but also a test of Alfred's diplomatic skills and strategic intelligence. The victory at Eddington placed Alfred in a strong position during peace negotiations with the Vikings. However, achieving peace was just one part of the challenge. The real task was to establish a lasting peace and build a sustainable relationship with the Vikings. One of Alfred's most important diplomatic achievements was the peace treaty with the Vikings. This treaty was a result of Alfred combining both his military and diplomatic skills to protect Wessex's territorial integrity. The agreement limited Viking control over English lands and ensured the security of Wessex. But the details of this treaty went beyond mere territorial agreements. It involved a series of complex diplomatic relationships and arrangements between the two parties. A key component of these treaties was the relationship with Danelaw. Danelaw was the region in northern and eastern England where the Vikings had established their own authority. Alfred, besides securing peace with the Vikings, also developed a complex relationship with Danelaw. These relations aimed not only to prevent conflicts, but also to promote trade and cultural exchange. Alfred skillfully balanced the interests of both sides, striving for continuous peace and stability while addressing the needs and interests of both the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxons. Alfred's diplomatic efforts were not just about ending wars, they were about ensuring regional stability. This process involved not only treaties but also mutual understanding and cooperation. Alfred's approach combined military and diplomatic strategies to secure long-term peace and security. Another important aspect of these peace treaties was Alfred's strengthening of his influence over Danelaw and his role in Viking relations. In the regions under Viking influence, Alfred encouraged both cultural and commercial interactions. This promotion enhanced regional stability and fostered a deeper understanding and cooperation between the two sides. Alfred's efforts for peace went beyond mere military victories. These efforts aimed at establishing lasting peace and cooperation with both the Vikings and Danelaw. Alfred's diplomatic success demonstrated his effectiveness not just as a warrior but also as a leader and strategist. His diplomatic achievements contributed to the preservation of Wessex's territorial integrity and the overall stability of England. Alfred the Great's peace treaties and diplomatic efforts solidified his important role in history. These successes show Alfred's brilliance in both military and diplomatic arenas. As we sit by the fire, we can better understand the impact of Alfred's diplomatic struggles on the future of his kingdom and the complexities of his relationship with Danelaw. Now we can shift our focus to Alfred's legacy and his long-term influence in history. Dear listeners, now is the perfect time to talk about how Alfred the Great became a legend not only on the battlefield and in diplomacy, but also through the power of the pen. As we gather around the fire, let me tell you how Alfred reshaped his kingdom, initiated a cultural revival, and took revolutionary steps in education. Alfred wasn't just a leader concerned with war, he was also deeply interested in educating the minds and spirits of his people. He believed in the power of both the sword and the pen. During his reign, Alfred's cultural revival and educational policies reflected his vision. These reforms had deep roots that shaped the future of England. Alfred wasn't just a king, he became a wise guide and teacher for his people. Throughout his reign, Alfred initiated a cultural and intellectual renaissance. Even in the tough times of his kingdom, Alfred was determined to preserve and enrich his people's cultural heritage. Amidst war and destruction, he succeeded in enlightening his people's minds and guiding them toward the light of knowledge. This was one of his greatest achievements. Alfred's cultural reforms were part of his effort to preserve and enhance the core values of Anglo-Saxon culture. He worked tirelessly to protect his people's identity, language, and cultural heritage. This effort not only preserved the Anglo-Saxon culture of his time, but also laid a solid foundation for future generations. Alfred understood the importance of preserving cultural heritage for the future success of his kingdom. Education policies were a key component of Alfred's cultural revival efforts. He believed that educating his people was crucial. For Alfred, education was not just about transferring knowledge, it was also about shaping the consciousness and character of his people. Consequently, he spread his education policies throughout every corner of his kingdom. Education became a major priority during his reign. Learning to read and write was the beginning of the pursuit of wisdom, and Alfred made this pursuit central to every individual's life. Alfred valued education so highly that he even initiated an educational campaign within his own palace. He required nobles, administrators, and clergy in his court to receive education. This sparked an intellectual uplift in the governance of his kingdom. Alfred's vision was to guide individuals at all levels of his kingdom towards knowledge and the pursuit of wisdom. Therefore, he established schools and educational centers in every corner of his realm. These centers provided education not only to clergy but also to ordinary people. Alfred saw knowledge as a right for everyone, not just the nobility. This reflected his sense of justice and equality. Preserving language and culture was also one of Alfred's top priorities. He understood the importance of preserving the Anglo-Saxon language and culture to maintain his people's identity and unity. Therefore, Alfred made significant efforts to promote and preserve the English language. He even translated many important works from Latin into English. These translations made wisdom sources accessible to the people and also encouraged the development of the language. Alfred knew how crucial preserving the language was for maintaining cultural heritage. Alfred's cultural reforms and education policies not only shaped the future of his kingdom but also immortalized his legacy. These policies reflected his vision and laid the foundation for the future success of his kingdom. Alfred was not just a warrior but also a sage. He did everything he could to educate his people's minds and spirits, enriching his kingdom both culturally and intellectually. Dear listeners, as you reflect on Alfred the Great's great reforms and policies, you should understand how forward-thinking his vision was. He left a mark not only on the battlefield but also in the minds and spirits of his people. Alfred's legacy will be remembered not just for military victories but also for these great cultural and intellectual reforms. He was a true sage, teacher, and guide to his people. As you sit by the warmth of the fire, consider how his significant reforms shaped the future of his kingdom. Dear listeners, gather around the fire, close your eyes, and listen closely. I'm about to tell you how a sage lost to the depths of history, King Alfred, left an eternal legacy through the power of the pen. You must know that he was not only a warrior but also a guardian of history and literature. Alfred's works, penned with a hand as powerful as his sword, reveal the depths of his mind and the reflection of his wise spirit. Alfred was a leader who fought not only with sword and shield but also with pen and ink. For him, preserving history and literature was as crucial as defending his kingdom. Alfred aimed to be a beacon for his time and for future generations. This ambition made him not just a warrior but also a writer, historian, and lawgiver. One of Alfred's greatest works is the Alfred's Law Code. This work was not just a legal text, but also a reflection of his understanding of justice and order. Alfred wrote this book to ensure justice and the rule of law in his kingdom. The Law Code made a significant contribution to the justice system of that time. Alfred's goal was to establish a system where his people could live in security. The foundation of this system was justice and law. His laws were meticulously written to protect the rights of his people and maintain order in his kingdom. This law code became a guide not only in the governance of his realm but also in the daily lives of his people. Alfred's sense of justice came to life in the pages of this book. He wrote these laws considering not just the present but also the future of his people. Alfred did everything in his power to protect his people's rights and ensure justice. This law code is a reflection of his wise soul and deep sense of justice. Alfred's literary works showcase his passion for knowledge and his struggle for the enlightenment of his people. He was not just a warrior but also a sage. Alfred wanted his people to be strong not only physically but also mentally. Therefore, he translated many important works into English for his people's education. Alfred's translations provided access to knowledge and supported his people's quest for wisdom. These translations reflect his passion for knowledge and his belief in his people's enlightenment. One of Alfred's most famous translations is Boethius's Consolation of Philosophy. This work was one of the most important books shaping Alfred's soul and mind. Alfred didn't just translate this book, he also rewrote it, adding his own thoughts and interpretations. This work reflects his quest for wisdom and deep interest in philosophy. By presenting this work to his people, Alfred encouraged them to join in the pursuit of wisdom. Alfred's historical writings demonstrate his desire to record the times and events. He understood that history was not just a record of the past but also a guide for the future. Thus, Alfred recorded significant events and developments in his kingdom. These records provide deep insights into his era. Alfred's historical works show that he was not only a warrior but also a historian. He took on the responsibility of preserving his kingdom's history and legacy. These records are a mirror of his time and his kingdom. Alfred's efforts left a substantial legacy not only for his own era but also for future generations. He protected and strengthened his kingdom not only with his sword but also with his pen. Alfred was not just a leader but also a sage. His works reflect his deep thoughts and dedication to his people. These works, as part of his legacy, continue to live with us today. Dear listeners, gather around as I take you to the final days of a king who defied time, a sage who fought and lived for his people. King Alfred dedicated every moment of his life to the well-being of his people, championing justice, science, and culture both on the battlefield and in the royal court. But even the greatest heroes are mortal, and Alfred was now preparing to leave this world. As the weight of the years slowly took its toll on his body, Alfred's mind remained sharp and strong. Every moment he lived, every breath he took, was for his people. Yet in these final days of physical decline, Alfred's gaze was fixed on the legacy that would endure beyond his death. He was far from the battlefields now, but his real struggle to ensure the welfare of his people and the continuity of his kingdom was more important than ever. In his final days, Alfred's loyal advisors and loved ones, who had been by his side for years, gathered around him. During those quiet evening hours, Alfred gave them his last pieces of advice, expressing his concerns and hopes for his people. Alfred was not just a king, he was a father, a sage, and a teacher. Even in death, he left behind teachings and laws that would continue to guide his people. These final pieces of advice were not just words. Even on his deathbed, Alfred made plans for the future of his people, advising his sons and successors to protect and expand the kingdom. He understood that death was not an end but a new beginning. His greatest legacy was a kingdom filled with justice, knowledge, and culture. In the year 899 AD, on a cold winter's day, Alfred bid farewell to this world. This wise king, who had fought for his people and lived for their welfare, left behind an unforgettable legacy when he closed his eyes for the last time. Though his death was a significant loss for the kingdom, Alfred's spirit continued to live on in the works he created, the laws he established, and in the hearts of his people. After Alfred's death, the kingdom mourned deeply. Yet his legacy continued to protect and strengthen the realm even in his absence. The castle walls he built not only protected his people from enemies but also from ignorance. Alfred's laws would keep his sense of justice alive for generations. After his death, Alfred was buried in the holy grounds of Winchester Cathedral, where kings rest in eternal sleep. But Alfred's story did not end there. His name continued to resonate throughout England. After his death, his people kept his teachings and legacy alive. The kingdom grew stronger on the solid foundations he had laid. The generations that followed preserved and expanded Alfred's legacy. Dear listeners, now I invite you to embark on a journey through time, exploring the profound legacy of a king whose impact extended beyond his death and shaped the destiny of his kingdom. This is the story of not an ordinary king, but a sage whose name is etched in the golden pages of history, a leader who resolutely shaped the future of his people. Alfred's death was not merely the end of a physical presence, but the beginning of a legacy that would shape England's future. The foundations of justice and wisdom he built throughout his life provided a roadmap not only for his own era but for all the English kings who followed. These foundations were more enduring than victories on the battlefield or treaties written in blood because Alfred built a future for his people. Alfred did not just protect the boundaries of his kingdom with a sword, he nourished his people's minds with knowledge, his laws with justice, and his culture with art. The legal reforms he introduced became the cornerstone of the English legal system for centuries. These laws brought peace and order to his people and elevated England to the pinnacle of civilization. The principles of Alfred's legal system provided justice and security throughout the kingdom. He was not only a ruler but also a lawgiver, and his laws served as a guarantee of justice and order for generations. Alfred's legacy was not limited to laws. He was also an educational reformer. He promoted literacy in his kingdom and emphasized the importance of knowledge and education. His encouragement led to an increased desire for learning among his people and the establishment of schools. Alfred guided his people from the darkness of ignorance toward knowledge and enlightenment. His efforts in cultural revival made England a center of knowledge and culture. Moreover, Alfred's military reforms were also a significant part of his lasting legacy. The fortresses he had built were not just a defense against enemy attacks, but also symbols of the protection of his kingdom's boundaries. These strategic moves guided the military plans of the kings who came after him. Alfred's military genius remained a revered legacy, appreciated by both his contemporaries and future generations. Alfred's peace treaties and diplomatic maneuvers with the Vikings demonstrated that he was not only a warrior but also a skilled diplomat. His diplomatic successes ensured the safety and stability of the kingdom for many years. This was a legacy that benefited not only Alfred but all the English kings who followed. Even after Alfred's death, his name was honored throughout England. His legacy affected not only the kingdom of Wessex but all of England. Alfred's descendants did everything in their power to preserve and build upon his legacy. He remained a figure who determined the course of the kingdom not only during his own time but also in the centuries that followed. One of Alfred's greatest legacies was laying the groundwork for England to eventually become a unified kingdom. His efforts set the first steps towards bringing together different regions of England into a single nation. Alfred's descendants and the kings that followed continued this vision, and eventually England united under a single flag. This unification laid the foundations for the safety, peace, and prosperity that Alfred had envisioned for his people. Dear listeners, Alfred's story teaches us not just about the life of a king, but how a nation's destiny can be shaped by one man. Alfred's legacy continued to live on even after his death. Today, his name is honored with respect and admiration throughout England. Alfred was not just a king, he was the father of England. His legacy endures in every corner of his kingdom, in the hearts of his people, and in the wise laws he left behind. Alfred's story shows us how a person, a leader, and a nation can leave behind an eternal legacy. He did not only fight for his people but also made the greatest sacrifices for their future. And today his grand legacy continues to live on in the foundations of England. Dear listeners, in today's journey we've uncovered the dusty pages of history, traced the footsteps of a hero from an ancient era, and walked through the golden age of Wessex with the wise steps of a king. Alfred's story is not just about the life of a king but the process of building a nation. He became a beacon of light for his people, shining like a star even in dark times. The lessons we draw from his life are not confined to the past, they inspire us today and tomorrow. Alfred did not only expand the borders of his kingdom, he also left lasting marks on the minds and hearts of his people. He showed us that winning battles isn't just about swords but also about knowledge, justice, and wisdom. His vision had an impact not just in his own time but across generations. As we recount the life of this great king who shaped the future of England, we find pieces of courage, determination, and wisdom in ourselves. Even though Alfred's story ends here, his legacy and influence are still with us. Following his path, understanding his wise decisions, and carrying his vision into the future is our greatest duty. If this story has left an impression on you, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us on this historical adventure. In our next video, we'll dive deep into history once more, exploring forgotten kingdoms, ancient peoples, and great leaders. I invite you to join me again on this magical journey and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, may the voice of history and the whispers of the past fill your journey with stories of wisdom,